Hey guys, welcome back to yet another Remnant 2 video. So the DLC for Remnant 2 has dropped. As you can imagine, I've played through it quite a bit. I'm going to quickly share my thoughts. I'm going to avoid spoiling as much as I can, but I will be showing some area snippets. I won't show any puzzle solutions or anything. In my opinion, this game is best when you're finding things out on your own with that discovery factor, so yeah, I won't be spoiling that. But let's talk about what's not going to be in this video. I'm not going to be talking about the new archetype, the Ritualist. I have a lot of thoughts and some cool builds and combos that I've found, but that's a large enough topic on its own. I don't really want to try to cram it into this video with everything else I have in mind, but I'll quickly just say that I like the Ritualist. I don't love it yet, but I do like it. I'm also not going to go into detail about the new weapons and mutators. I've of course been playing around with them and trying to get new stuff to work, but I'm not really going to say much about the individual weapons here. I'll share some of my thoughts when I talk about the Ritualist in that separate video, but I will give my general kind of overall thoughts about the weapons here in a few minutes. Okay, so I played through the DLC 2 times. I have not seen everything, and I have not found every item, but 2 playthroughs I think is enough for me to feel confident, in my opinion. I went into this DLC feeling optimistic, but I wouldn't say overly so. I try to temper my expectations to avoid disappointment, and as it stands right now, I would say I have mixed feelings about the DLC. There is a lot to like about the Awakened King, and when it's good, it is very good. But in my opinion, there just should have been more. And when I say more, I don't mean in the entitled asshole gamer way, this DLC isn't worth $10, yada yada. That value is subjective. What $10 is worth could be anything to anyone, honestly. Some people spend $10 on dumb shit like World of Warcraft pets or Destiny 2 emotes, and to me, the Awakened King is worth $10 absolutely. What I mean by there should have been more is that the story and the world and the concepts explored here, they're all just kind of introduced, and then that's it. The DLC's done. I don't want to get into specifics for the sake of spoilers, but there's some absolutely cool shit going on here that isn't really explored by the time the story is over. And it's super unlikely that future DLCs will further continue the Loathsome storyline. For my Bloodborne fans out there, it would be like if the story ended right after you defeat Rom the Spider and you see the Blood Moon. You'd be sitting there like, wait, what? That's it? What's all this build up for? So yeah, it just feels like a waste in that regard. But also, big props to Gunfire Games in the first place for making me care this much about the story. So I want to break down my specific thoughts into good, mixed, and bad. I'll start with the good stuff, the stuff that I think is pretty much great all around. The big one for me is this new DLC storyline. At first I expected this to be like a continuation of the Imposter King storyline from the base game, with Phelan/Phelan usurping the throne. That was not the case, and I'm pleasantly surprised with how they went with the story. I'm not going to spoil it in case you haven't played it yet. I think this is easily the best storyline in the game so far. We also get a ton of new friendly NPCs to talk with. One of my biggest gripes with the main game was the Dran. They're just a bunch of assholes who attack you on sight for the most part. I had a hard time feeling sympathetic for them because of that, but with this DLC, you get a few friendly faces. Just regular old Joe Schmoes out here just living their best life. I really like it. It works, and it makes me kind of feel for the Dran, you know, and their problems. Also, we get a couple friendly Fae to talk to. I actually really enjoyed learning more about the Fae and who they were before the king and who they think they are after the king. It's some compelling stuff that really adds a layer of conflict to the Fae themselves, and I love it. Another thing that I think deserves nothing but praise is the new map, Forlorn Coast, as well as some of the new map pieces that are integrated into the Loathsome random map generation. These new map pieces are all so goddamn high quality, it like raises the bar, and when you see the old map pieces, they really stick out like a sore thumb. So yeah, lots of praise for the new story, the new characters, the new map pieces, I love it all. So let's move on to what I'm feeling mixed about. Starting with the new enemies. There are a total of 3 new enemies in this DLC. I'm not counting variations of existing enemies as new, such as the pigs or the red-hooded Dran. One of the new enemies, this infected Dran thing, absolutely sucks to fight on Apocalypse. These things are absurdly tanky and deal stupid amounts of damage. They can snipe you the second you stick your face into a room, and they almost always come in groups of 2 to 3. These things killed me more than anything else in the whole DLC, and I sincerely hope they get nerfed ASAP because they fucking suck and I hate them. The other 2 new enemies in the game are the tall goth mommy witches, and these guys that kind of look like the 𝖑𝖏𝖏𝖊𝖑𝖑𝖏𝖏 from Resident Evil 4. Both of these new enemies are functionally similar to the Chainsaw Dran. They don't really pose much of a threat, but they provide some variation at least, so they're okay, I guess. Now let's talk about bosses. Yup, it's sad to say that the bosses are in the mixed category. There are 3 bosses in this DLC, all of which have been shown in the promotional material for this game, so I don't consider it a spoiler, but here's your warning in case that bothers you. The bosses are the Sunken Witch, Bruin, Blade of the King, and the one true king himself. The Sunken Witch is almost identical to her non-boss counterpart. She has like 1 to 2 moves that are really easy to deal with. The biggest threat of this fight is the shitty arena and the pigs that start jumping down about halfway. The boss itself has way too much health, so it just goes on for so long, just shooting her in the head over and over and over. I did not like this fight. I'm not a big fan of fights that challenge you by putting you in a shitty arena and swarming you with mobs. If she had like half the HP she currently does, it would be much more tolerable. Bruin, Blade of the King is a cool looking boss. But again, I really did not like this fight. He is also just way too tanky. And worse yet, this boss is constantly up your ass. He does not give you a break. So you spend the whole fight just trying to get away from him, just to sneak in like 1 or 2 shots, and then go back to rolling. I don't know if you can actually survive his spear throwing attack. After like 5 tries of just getting destroyed by this attack, I just started running underneath him instead, which seems to just end the attack early and go back to phase 1 again. I don't know if this is what you're supposed to do or if there's a way to avoid it. Yeah, I don't know, this boss fight just wasn't for me. I didn't like it at all. And of course at the end we have the one true king boss fight. And this boss fight was actually fantastic. He has some incredibly good telegraphs. His hitboxes are generally super fair, and he has way less health than the other 2 bosses, which is fucking weird. There's this cool mechanic where you can free the Fey Knights that are chained up, and then they just teleport onto him for a sick-ass takedown. And man, I just love it. It's so damn cool to see the Fey take the fight to the big man himself. This is a great boss fight and easily the best thing that come out of this DLC. So yeah, I liked 1 out of the 3 bosses, which is why I put bosses in general in the mixed category. And the last thing I'm mixed about is the new weapons. I have all the new DLC weapons except the Steel Scythe and the secret hidden weapon called Anguish. There's 7 in total, and at this point in time, in my opinion, only 2 of them are actually pretty good and viable. Now, as usual, these are my early thoughts, and someone could find some crazy build that makes everything here god tier or something, but until that happens, I consider the weapon selection of this DLC to be pretty mid overall. Okay, so now that we're done talking about the mixed stuff, let's talk about the flat-out bad stuff. The big one for me is performance issues. I've had pretty decent performance on my PC when playing the base game. I don't have a monster PC or anything, but I can usually run between 50 to 70 frames per second on medium-ish settings. But there's a number of areas in Forlorn Coast where performance drops between 20 and 30 frames per second. I even tried turning down distant graphical detail or whatever. It didn't make a difference. Thankfully, these performance issues never happened during a boss fight, but it still totally sucks when it happens. Another thing that this DLC needed was some more polish. I had enemies getting stuck, enemies spawning on top of me, weird level geometry, hitboxes blocking my shots. Falling through this elevator and getting stuck. Just weird shit, and thankfully it wasn't often, but it was enough to hint maybe Gunfire should have spent a little more time testing or hired some new testers, which by the way, Gunfire, if you're watching, hit me up, I'd be a great member of your team. Another thing that I did not like was how often they reused Cotton's Kiln for the new maps. I personally hate Cotton's Kiln. I think the map pieces are boring and lack variation. And unfortunately, they get used a lot in the new maps, Derelict Lighthouse and Sunken Haunt. Okay, and the last thing I'm going to complain about is this new one-shot adventure thing. So first, let me try to explain what this is, because I was a little confused about it at first, until I started my second run and I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. When you roll the Awakened King map in adventure mode for the first time, you'll get this prompt about it being a one-shot. What this means is that for that very first time you play this adventure, it will not be randomized, like, at all. You will pretty much only see the new areas, new bosses, new items, etc., with some small exceptions, but yeah, basically you're seeing almost everything you paid for. And in my opinion, this is great. I really like this, and it made my first playthrough of the DLC feel special. But when you re-roll the map again, everything is now randomized and mixed in with the default Losum map stuff. So if you wanted to revisit a particular DLC map to get an item you missed or whatever, it could be Butcher's Quarter or Great Sewers instead. It's time to fight the fucking Bloat King again. Yay! I guess my complaint here is that I wish we could re-roll that one-shot map layout as many times as we wanted. I just want to see the new shit, and it gets annoying having the old shit I've played through 100 times just keep getting in the way. Okay, so there's one last thing I want to do before wrapping up this video. I know it's already getting kind of long, so I'll try to make it fast. I previously posted a DLC speculation video where I kind of made some wild guesses, and I thought it would be fun to look back and see how much I got wrong. In that video, when I was going over what the DLC is supposed to be about, I totally forgot that the king is supposedly corrupted by the root. It even still says so on the store page, but this is never shown or hinted at in the game itself. At least not that I could see, so I don't know if they just forgot about that or what, but there's no hint of the root during this DLC. I also said that since the king is corrupted by the root, we should see a root-corrupted version of him, similar to the Ravager versus the corrupted Ravager. But no, he looks the same as he did while sleeping, so again I ask, is he really corrupted by the root? I don't know. I also said it was safe to assume we'd see a water-type boss, based on the fact this is a coastal city and there's lots of madness, eldritch stuff going on, but no, there's no water boss at all. Which is crazy because there's books in the game that hint at a sea monster that lures people to their death. So it kind of feels like Gunfire Games maybe had one ready to go and then cut it at the last minute for some reason. I also predicted that we might see a 𝖒𝖎𝖊𝖊𝖑 boss fight, which we didn't get unfortunately, and that's all I'm going to say about it to avoid spoilers. I predicted that Bruin would give us a melee weapon, which he does not, he gives a mod power. I predicted that we'd get the anchor held by the witches as a weapon, which we do get one similar, but not that exact one. I predicted we'd get a blunderbuss type weapon. We do get the Sparkfire shotgun, which is kind of close, but not exactly what I was thinking about. I predicted we'd get the chainsaw as a melee weapon, which was sadly very wrong. Those were my predictions, and I was pretty much wrong about everything. But who's really wrong here? My wild guesses, or Gunfire Games for not putting all this cool shit in the game? I'll let you guys be the judge of that. So I think that covers my thoughts. I'm sure I missed something that I probably should have talked about, but yeah, overall, I'm feeling pretty mixed about this DLC. I feel like I got my money's worth, and I think the game is better by having this DLC, but it was so close to greatness and it just fell short, in my opinion. So yeah, I'm interested to know what you guys are thinking about this DLC. Do you guys love playing Cotton's Kiln over and over? Does the King's big pyramid head remind you of that Demon Souls boss too? I'd like to know, so let me know down in the comments below. If you enjoy hearing me ramble on about this game that I play way too much, please consider giving this video a like, so that YouTube forcibly shoves my content into other people's recommendations. Let's be honest, that's the only reason you found me in the first place. If you're new here and are interested in more Remnant content like challenge runs, consider subscribing and checking out my channel videos. I got some stuff that I think is pretty decent. So yeah, maybe give it a chance, you might like it, and then we'll both be happy. And that's going to do it for this video. So I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.